Great. Warm welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Learning Podcast. I'm very happy to have Zach Cherian as my second guest for season two. Warm welcome, Zach. Any welcome words before I start off introducing you?
But just excited to be part of this. Thank you, Ravi.
Great, Zach. Zach Cherian is the founder of Cornerstone Talent Partners, based out of Vancouver, Canada. Earlier, Zach had worked as a director, culture and organization enablement at Fractal. Prior to that, director of learning and development at Kia Technologies, and prior to that, head HR, HSBC, Bangalore, GSC, amongst numerous global leadership roles he has led, such as leading human resources, operations, organization development, learning and leadership development, and M&A integrations. Now, over the course of his illustrious career, spanning more than 25 years, Zach has been recognized for his contributions. So this includes being chosen to be part of a small team that was invited to the opening day of the stock at the New York Stock Exchange at, I think, Keysight Technologies. And under his leadership at Kia Technologies, his team won various Brandon Hall Awards for L&D strategies and innovation. Now, at Cornerstone Talent Partners, Zach and his team specialize in developing leaders, teams, instructors, and HR professionals to be impactful and inspiring. They are a boutique learning, development, and consulting firm that elevates their contribution to the next level. The team has global experience working with major corporations in which they have done hundreds of learning programs and interventions that have touched thousands of people. Zach is a CPHR member, is certified in situation leadership, personality and preference inventory, MBTI, Hogan and Harrison assessments. So Zach, again, a warm welcome to the Monday Morning Learning Podcast Season 2. Now, in this episode, we'll be focusing on learning and leadership development and people management. So there are typically three themes that we'll be looking at. We'll start off with how to strengthen leadership development. Second theme being elevate learning mindsets. And the third one, enhancing people management practices, Zach. So that's about it. First question to you, Zach, on the theme of strengthening leadership development is on adaptive and resilient leadership. According to you and according to your experience, Zach, how can leaders develop resilience and adaptability to navigate uncertainty while keeping their teams motivated?
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's certainly a big topic these days, this whole concept of resilience, especially, and adaptability. My view is that it kind of develops naturally as much as possible. It cannot be imparted in some way. To give you an example, one of the really bad roles that I did, where I was fairly unsuccessful, taught me a lot about resilience. Stuff was just not working the way I wanted it to work. I don't think I was working with the best sort of environment, in the best environment with the best team, etc. Now, I don't mean to say that they were bad people or anything, but just I was in the wrong place, let's just say, or I was the wrong person for it. Sure. But that kind of thing, that kind of experience builds resilience. You may or may not come out of that kind of an experience successfully, right? But even if you're unsuccessful, a muscle will be built. Yeah. And so I think that some things, especially some bad things that happen at work, are a really good teacher for building resilience. Yeah. And people just have to go through it. I mean, I think the good thing about a bad experience is that it ends, there's always a mountain after a valley and all of that. So we as leaders, or when we're doing leadership development, we just have to tell people that, if you are going through such a phase as this, it's fine, everybody does, and the outcome will be whatever, but at least you'll build the resilience. So back to the real question, the answer is it has to happen through natural, real life situations. And sometimes, most of the time, it happens better when it's a really bad situation. So, I mean, most people will relate to the fact that if you have a very, very old, unwell parent at home, just taking care of that person for a few months can teach you a level of empathy that no training program can teach you, right? And so once again, it happens naturally. So my message, I guess, in this one would be to embrace the hard times,
Mhm.
Understand that the outcome sometimes is out of your control, but no matter what the outcome, the muscle will be built, and so just take it as it comes and
Mhm.
go for it, and realize that sometimes leaders, especially, and when you become a leader, a certain amount of ego comes along with the role and all of that. I get that.
Mhm.
Sometimes when people are going through a hard time, they'll say, oh, maybe I'm not a good leader, or what do I need to do, and so on and so forth. And you don't need to do anything, just go through it. And because you were unsuccessful in that experience doesn't mean you were a bad leader. Everybody is unsuccessful once in a while and many times. So uh, again, to sum it up, it's just real life, hard knocks, go through it, build the muscle, and just do it. Trust the process, that it will build your resilience.
Excellent.
So yeah, I would say adaptive and resilient leadership is just about being a leader.
Absolutely.
Well, influence is a very big topic. As you know, Ravi, there's books written on influence, right? How to influence people and win friends, and
Yeah.
Robert Cialdini is a master at writing books around that. So, influence as a topic can be taught for 2 or 3 days, and still somebody may not really fully get it because there's so much to it. But you bring about two good aspects of it. One is the whole the presence and things like that. Executive presence is very important in a leadership role. How you come across is very, very important. Two things that I'm starting to not I'm starting to, I mean, and this is not just my insight, but two things I would call out is communication skills.
Mhm.
You must invest, if you're a leader, you must invest in your own communication skills so that you come across as a powerful, uh, clear communicator. If you're not a good communicator, honestly, it takes a big dent on your influence already. We know that good leaders have to be good communicators. They don't have to be flamboyant or
Mhm.
masters at the language, but they have to be good communicators. They must have the ability to inspire, use the right words to clearly communicate their message. Uh, Listen with empathy, etc. So
Yeah.
communication skills is a big part of executive presence. Is a big part of influence, I think.
Yeah.
And executive presence is important. And when we think about executive presence, I think we think about things such as communication and how the person presents and how the person shows up, what they wear and all of that, right? I mean, do they take care of themselves and so on and so forth? And that's important as well. I mean, you want to come across as someone who's got a handle on things. You don't want to come across as someone who's lost it,
Yeah.
right? So with that in mind, it doesn't harm you. In fact, it only helps your influence if you show up in a certain way, if you're professional, if you know how to carry yourself, if you've got your message in your head clear, you're able to talk through it, you have a smile on your face, you're not the grumpiest person on the floor, you're not the dirtiest, no, you wear good clothes to a meeting, you come on time, just stuff like that
Yeah.
can create, influence. Again, I don't mean to say any of this to say, okay, buy expensive clothes and do, have a fashion show. None of that.
Yeah.
It's just being aware of how are you coming across.
Absolutely. It just
Yeah.
reminds me of a couple of leaders, Zach, and back in HSBC while I was working, right? This was in 2002 when I joined. We had a leader called Ganesh Sharma. Excellent leader. I mean, he used to dress up very
Okay.
well, and we used to literally go and check the dictionary after his morning talk because he used to use all kinds of words and very, very influential. I mean, huge influence for me across my career. Santosh Cherian was my ex-boss back in Wells Fargo. Again, very different personality as such, but I think when we talk of executive presence, I think that is something which we can easily make it out. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing with executive presence is you don't want to take it too far in the sense that executive presence by itself does not guarantee success. If you can't get the job done, executive presence will not take you forward.
Absolutely.
So it helps, certainly. I mean, sometimes you come across these very, very flamboyant, visionary type of leaders who can speak their way, they can sell you anything, but they don't get stuff done. You
Yes.
get fired if you do stuff like that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so, talk is good, the dress is good, but get the job done. That's what you're paid for.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect.
I think this is if we think of leadership development, there are two types of things, Ravi, we develop. We develop what I call below the surface, which is your personality, who you are,
Mhm.
and we develop what's above the surface, which is what you do and how you show. Typically, skills are above the surface. So, for example, um, you know. Let's take an example of leadership skills. They're above the surface. Below the surface will be things like emotional intelligence, right? Who you are,
Yeah.
because who you are influences how you lead,
Right.
right? Now, this one, especially around learning mindset and all, I think it's more below the surface.
Mhm.
Is about, do you want to learn? Do you understand why it's important to continually learn,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't get that, you're not going to prioritize it.
Yes.
Um, it's very, very important that people understand the importance of learning. First of all, the more you learn, the more money you will make. It's simple. So, not just learning for the sake of learning, that is also good. But if you want to be successful, make more and more money, grow in your career, go places, you better learn, right? There is no question about it.
Mhm.
Now, to make it practical, now to come up above the surface, I think, not that I've done any doctoral research on this, but I've seen people who spend 10% of their time, weekly, daily, monthly, in learning are ahead of the people who don't spend even that much time. So I'm talking about 4 hours in one week.
Yeah.
If you cannot dedicatedly give 4 hours in one week to your learning, reading, and I don't mean chatting with people randomly. No, that's not. That's of course learning. You can learn things from there, but
Mhm.
dedicatedly learning for 4 hours at least in a week or a day. If you're not doing that, you're going to be a little behind than the people who are investing that kind of a time. The number of things that are in your sort of bag or your folder which you have not read must be much more than what you have read, which means you have so much more to go,
Mhm.
that you have a excess of assets in your learning bag or whatever, school bag, I guess, in some way. So below the surface, understand why it's important. More money, more compensation,
Mhm.
promotion, faster growth, more influence,
Yeah.
right? And above the surface, prioritize it. Block time in your calendar every day, 1 hour. Block time to read or study or do whatever. Every week, 4 hours. I also tell people that when we are doing training around developing, I tell them, what have you done in the last 6 months that you can add to your resume?
Yeah.
If it is not big enough to add to your resume, I don't know. And what are you going to do in the next 1 year which you can add to your resume? If your resume does not, if you don't add anything significant to your resume every year, which
Mhm.
means you're not really, cutting it,
Yeah.
then of course there are other concepts, Ravi, like I would say, back in the day, Ravi, when at least I was younger, we would say that, 2% of the, I don't know I don't know who it was, who said it, or whether it was even financially the right thing. But someone used to say that 2% of the company's profits must go into learning and development of the employees, or something like that. So
Yes.
let's take that analogy. 2% of your take home salary should go into something regarding learning and development.
Yeah.
Are you spending 2% of your salary in your learning and development, new certifications, new courses, etc.? Are you? So, bottom line is, if you're not investing money and time in your development, I don't know, just you might not be there in the long run, you
Absolutely.
know. So yeah, I think one of the things, Ravi, I'm really passionate about is getting people together physically to do whatever, and knowledge sharing can be part of that. Training workshops are part of that, and so on. Kudos to all the great tools we have these days that help knowledge sharing, such as Zoom, for example. You can use it for a knowledge sharing thing. You're going to create a podcast; it's going to go live. Some people are going to see it, etc. It's great. But apart from that, if companies and teams want to enhance collaboration and knowledge sharing, I think there needs to be an investment in bringing people together, uh, for brainstorming, for ideation, for project planning, for training, for team building. You can bring people together for so many of these topics. And so knowledge sharing can become one of those topics. I think people learn a lot from that. You can imagine, right, Ravi? I mean, the reason you're doing a podcast is because you're bringing us in person. Now, you could have asked, I mean, you could have asked all of your podcast guests the same answers. You could have sent a document and, we type the answer, send it back to you. You send it to your audience.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something missing in that.
Mm,
People just learn in the company of others. We like to learn together. We like to talk. We like to engage. So, if companies want to continue to do that, I think they need to continue to prioritize in-person knowledge sharing as well. And this is not a case to bring everybody back into office 5 days a week. I have no opinion about that. I'm just
mm,
saying that maximize the time you have together in stuff like this.
Great, Zach. I mean, I wanted an opinion on digital learning, which is being kind of a transformational strategy for corporates the last 5 years post-COVID as such. And I am a big fan of in-person learning because I've actually seen the impact, and I agree with what you said just now. What's your
Yeah.
opinion? I mean, digital learning, is it as impactful as in-person learning?
Yeah, it's on some topics I'm really not for digital learning, and on some topics maybe it is. No, I'm. If you ask me which one am I a sort of fan of, I'm a fan of in person for sure, hands down, any day of the week. I am. Um, I mean, it's easy to imagine 25 people on a Zoom call doing digital learning, and the moment you start the workshop or whatever you're doing, 24 of the 25 will switch off their cameras and they're doing their emails and stuff. Whereas you bring them in class, now they're invested, they have the connections to make, and so on.
Mm,
Digital learning is not bad for things that can be digitally taught. For example, if I'm reading a case study on adoption of AI by HR teams in the world,
mm,
I think that's fine. I can read an article around that. That's good. If I want to brainstorm it and make it real for my HR team,
mm,
I really want to talk to someone. I want to be part of a seminar, which is in person. I just attended a seminar this morning, Ravi, on the neuroscience of effective communication, okay,
mm,
or something like that. I forget the title, but the message was clear. It was in person. I think it's one of those workshops where I still remember, even though it was in the morning, I still remember most of what I learned, right? And so it was in person. There was an opportunity to talk. There was an opportunity to ask questions and so on.
mm,
Uh, yeah, MOOCs, for example, have a very unfortunate completion rate. I think it's like 2% or something. Like people start and they don't finish it, you know. So that does tell a story. Now, if you are a company of 20,000 people and you want everybody to have access to some sort of learning, of course
mm.
you will have a LMS and an LXP and all of that. That's okay. Everybody can do something on those things, but they do have their, like, there's a point at which it stops being effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I think, Ravi, the the two concepts of high performance on one side and psychological safety and trust, some leaders see it as conflicting topics, as if they are dichotomy, that it's a dichotomy, as if you can have one at the
Yeah.
cost of the other, or you can have this at the cost of this. Either you can have high performance or you can have an engaged team. That's not true. And I think people need to get over this. You can have a high performing team while creating psychological safety and so on, and it's important to do that. So when you start thinking of it as opposite ends of a spectrum, then you're afraid to either create high performance. Sometimes you need to give a tough message to someone, or you're afraid that if I become too, create a very psychologically safe place, then people will not do their job.
Yeah.
All of these assumptions are really wrong, right?
Right.
And so maybe the start of this
Mm,
is to understand what is the role of a leader. The role of a leader is to get the job done
yeah.
with people, right?
Absolutely.
It's not one or the other. You
Absolutely.
can't, it's not just about people, it's not just about results. You can't just get results at the cost of people's happiness and engagement, or the other way around. And so I think we need to give the message that there is that 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 you need we need to clarify who you are as, I mean, who I am, who you are as a leader, what is our role, and that we as leaders hold all of these tensions together. It's not one or the other. So, on a practical aspect, Ravi, we are seeing a lot of sort of need for topics such as having difficult conversations. We're having a lot of need for topics such as psychological safety, well-being, etc. And these are all parts of a leader's role. It's not one or the other. And so we continue to train people on that, but always giving the message that you do all of this together, you know, at the same time, in the same day, with the same person or people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just clarifying what it is to be a leader and what is the role of a leader. This one brings to mind, Ravi, the situational leadership model by the Blanchard Company, where for a little bit of time, the manager is the one driving the task, taking the decisions, and then after a point in time, once the competence of a person increases, the manager takes more of a coach role, sort of steps back and lets the employee decide and all that, and that transition. Can be slowed down by two factors, I think. Maybe more, but I think two factors. One is that the manager doesn't want to give up control, and that's a big problem, because the manager is so used to controlling the person and giving instructions and setting the deadlines and blah blah blah, as creating the boundary and all of that, that somehow that becomes the habit of the manager, and the manager thinks, well, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it's good to recognize that, it's good to just understand that there is such a model as this, and that people over time do develop. And while they are developing, the manager's style also has to shift from being more controlling to more empowering, right?
Right.
And so it's good to self-reflect that. Sometimes that kind of self-reflection will only happen in a training workshop, unfortunately. But I think if you have a person who's a manager, he or she or they, if they are investing in their development, reading stuff, I think this kind of knowledge is now fairly common about moving your style. So that's number one. Number one reason why that kind of a change is hampered. The other reason the change is hampered is because the employee doesn't want to change. The team member doesn't want. The team member wants to stay dependent on the manager. So for everything, he or
Mm.
she will continue to come to the manager and say, "What should I do?" You know, and so those are times when again the manager has to step up and say, "Well, I can take the decision, but I'm not going to do it."
Yeah.
And push back on the person and say, "You do it." And if you fail, but you do it. And so I think it's recognizing that people do become better at doing things over a period of time.
Mm.
And if that is true, then you have to change your style and also make them understand that they are becoming better indeed over a period of time. The opposite of this belief is that people stay where they are. That's not true. That cannot be true, because we all learn new things to do, right? Just with it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of practice that we learn things. So that belief has no foundation. The
Right.
belief that people want to learn and do learn and can learn is true. And
Mm.
if that is true, then managers have to be flexible with their own style, and also help the team member become flexible and take a few more risks.
Excellent.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know who said it, that someone said that the beauty of a really good mistake is that it never happens again. So allow for the mistake to happen, because it's never going to happen again. Once, for example, Ravi, you and I know that make a mistake such as a certain driving maneuver and something bad happens, we're never going to do it again.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of a mistake, that a really good mistake um, uh, takes away its own possibility of existence from the future. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
the manager must facilitate that
Mhm.
ground of development.
Yeah. It's like just one more, I think, opinion of yours I actually wanted because
Sure.
back in 2012, when I joined Wells Fargo, I've seen the senior leaders being coached by an external coach as such. So all
Yeah.
the senior leaders, I had external coach, I think from Singapore. He used to come physically to the center and then they used to have 1 hour kind of coaching.
Yeah.
But over a period of time, I've been seeing the last, I think, 3, 4 years, and one of my close friend is a coach, certified by ICF.
Yeah.
He's come up with a center of excellence idea in his company for coaching as such. So coaching not
Yeah.
just for leaders on the top, but coaching across the board. Whosoever actually needs the coaching can actually go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
So they've adopted the model, and the entire company, whosoever actually wants to have a coach, they can actually go down and
That's good.
speak to that person. So I don't know this one particular company based in Hyderabad, located globally any which ways. But have you seen such trends across L&D asset? Because I see it as a new trend, and it's a wonderful one, really.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I agree with. So yes, absolutely, I've seen it, and I fully agree with it. I just as you, I would support it if the bandwidth of the organization is there to support such an initiative to provide coaching services or coaches to all employees on demand. That's fantastic. Because coaching, like you said, Ravi, at some point in time was the privilege of the senior people,
Yes.
right? And it really doesn't have to be like that. Also, at that time, I don't know, Ravi, if you agree with me, but I just get the feeling at that time coaching was really expensive. Like if you got an external coach, it was like,
Yeah.
like a headache, to pay the person.
Yeah.
And so it was only reserved for a few people for whom the L&D budget was very big.
Yeah.
But hope things are accessible now. You have coaching platforms. You have many coaches becoming coaches, like professional coaches, which is great.
Mm.
Uh, so yes, I really like that trend. Again, because it's back to your first question about first or second question about learning mindset and all that.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
people have the learning mindset, and if there is such a resource such as this available, that's a great match.
Absolutely, Zach.
Yeah, it kind of brings me to a separate point, Ravi, about the role, whose responsibility is it to learn? I mean, your personal development is whose responsibility, yours or managers or organizations? Squarely, clearly, it's yours.
Yeah.
The responsibility to develop you is yours. Your manager is an amazing facilitator in that, and the organization can provide the larger tools and resources and environment for it. And so, if all these three fit together, I want to learn, my manager supports me, tools and resources are available, that's fantastic.